So good afternoon, everyone. Today, we start the webinar series, L Family and Community Engagement with the NCDPI ESL Title III. Can we change the slide? Thank you. So here we have our webinar series. We have 4 sessions in our series. The first one is today, December the 11th, L Family Engagement Research-Based Frameworks with Dr. MariaRosa Rangel from Wake County Public Schools. Then we're going to have one in January 22nd, 2020. Number 2, a collaborative approach to L Family Engagement with Sandra Greenfield from Public Schools of Robeson County. In March will be our third session, L Family Engaging Strategies and Activities with Maria Uribe and Adriana Marzo, Duplin County Schools. And our last session of this webinar series will be April 15th, L Family Engagement Beyond the Classroom with Christopher Goodnight from Kannapolis City Schools. All these sessions will be on Wednesdays from 3:30 to 4:30. And you will be able to find more information on our bit.ly/PD dashboard, all the webinars and Twitter chats that we are conducting, as well as the book studies. So we have today Dr. MariaRosa Rangel. Dr. MariaRosa Rangel has over 24 years of educational experience. She obtained her undergraduate degree in bilingual, bicultural, and elementary education from the Northeastern University of Chicago, Illinois, and her master's degree in school administration and doctoral degree in education from North Carolina State University. She has served as a third-grade bilingual teacher, a GED instructor, Spanish and ESL teacher, an assistant principal, a district-wide LEP dual language coordinator, and a senior administrator for Latino outreach. Currently, Dr. Rangel serves as the Director for Family and Community Outreach Services in the Office of Equity Affairs for the Wake County Public Schools District. She is responsible for planning, developing, and coordinating family and community activities and events and programs to improve students' academic achievement. I invite Dr. Rangel.
Buenas tardes. Good afternoon, everybody. I hope everybody's doing great. Thank you for joining us today. And okay.
So let's have a quick check. If
Okay.
you can hear us loud and clear, mainly Dr. Rangel, please raise your electronic hand. You will see the icon on the control panel. So if you can hear us today loud and clear, mainly Dr. Rangel, because I'll be quiet from now on, please raise your hand. So if you can say something, Dr. Rangel, and see, we can check everyone can hear you.
Yes, can you hear me?
Okay, perfect. I see most of the hands have been raised, so you may continue.
Perfect. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. And thank you for being with us today and starting this webinar series. We are really excited about this opportunity having you here with us today. So you may continue.
Perfect. So today we're going to talk a little bit about frameworks and what does that mean for you as you think about family engagement and as you think about developing your own plan. Also, I would like to let you know that there will be future sessions, just like Ms. Stout just mentioned, and some of those sessions will focus more on strategy. So today I just want to give you a little bit of the research and also a little knowledge of the different frameworks. Please know that there are many frameworks out there, but I want to walk you through some that I feel that they're critical as you think about where do I begin? How do I go about developing my classroom or my school or my district family engagement plan? So obviously today we're going to kind of focus a little bit also for ELL families. Um, so let's begin. A little bit about the evolution of family engagement. I think it's critical for us to understand that parent involvement policy goes back as far as the 17th century. And parent involvement policies that focus on disadvantaged children actually surfaced in the 1960s with the passage of the Elementary and Secondary Act of 1965, which was the War on Poverty. And then it was authorized as the No Child Left Behind. And when you think about the No Child Left Behind of 2001, this policy has a lot of significance because it was then they under section 1118 that it actually spelled out the role of families as far as what role should families play in the education of their children. Of course, this policy connects the development of parent involvement, but also we need to take into account the latest one, which is Every Student Success Act, ESSA, of 2015, that basically rolled back much of the federal government's big footprints in education policy. So this is just to give you a little bit about the evolution of family engagement. So did you know there are many different terms used to refer to engagement? For example, you have parent involvement, homeschool partnerships, homeschool relationships, parent outreach. But truly, when you think about these terms, which term is used in your school community? Can you think about that for a minute? So now let's shift a little bit about this term. I don't know if you guys have heard engagement versus involvement. So basically, what I would like to ask you is, which term do you use, engage or involved? So what is the difference? I mean, what do you think it means engage and what do you think it means to be involved? So basically, this is what Karen Mapp does and what she says. Karen Mapp, if you don't know who she is, you're going to hear me talk a lot about Karen Mapp. She's a professor at Harvard University. She's published books and she has done a lot of work as far as research about feminine engagement. And she says that when you think about the word involvement, it comes from the Latin roof and it means involvere, which means to wrap around, cover, or envelop, roll, cause to roll. And then when you think about the word engagement, um, it basically means to make a formal agreement, to contract with, to pledge an obligation to do something. So I want you to think about this, okay? So when you think about involvement, think about we are doing for, whereas engagement is doing with. Let me give you an example. I want you to think about curriculum night. Parents come to us, right? We have the classroom ready, and we want to tell parents, this is what we're going to do for your child this year, right? This is what they're going to learn. So what are we doing? We are doing for, right? We're just giving them the curriculum. This is what we are going to be teaching. But engagement is more doing with, right? What we really want is to engage them in a conversation. We really want them to understand what are we teaching our students. And sometimes, it really helps to do hands-on so that they could better grasp uh, how they can support their student, their child at home with literature, with math. So I want you to think about involvement as doing for and engagement doing with. In fact, engagement is the latest term out there, and again, it's taken many years to come out with, well, what is the difference between involvement and engagement? In fact, when you go and start reading the literature about feminine engagement or family involvement, it is very interesting to see those two terms. But again, engagement is becoming, is the latest term. But again, I kind of like that because again, we want to do with our families instead of doing for. And so that's for the rest of the presentation, we're going to refer it as engagement. Maybe I might flip a little bit and say involvement, but I will come back and say engagement. So this is what I really want you guys to think about those two terms, as well as that as you are putting together your family engagement plan, I want you to consider the terminology that you're going to use. What are you going to use? Whichever term you use, I would like for you to hear the voices of your students, the families, and educators to come together in this process of let's define this so that then it's clear for everybody to understand that whether it's family engagement, whether it's family involvement, whether it's family partnerships, whatever it is, that everybody understands the term and that you are able to then use it. In fact, I will encourage you to spell it out and put it on a poster form in your school so that as your families come in and as your students, your educators, your teachers, everybody comes into the building, they could see family engagement means blah, 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 blah. But again, define it. When you define it together and you involve all the stakeholders, you have more buy-in from everybody. So it's a win-win. So family engagement, there's over 50 years of research, right, that tell us that family engagement is one of the strongest predictor of a child's success in school versus background as far as economic background, status, or even different backgrounds. It doesn't matter. What this 50 years of research tell us is that when families are engaged in their child's education, the child's going to do well in school. So let's talk a little bit about the benefits of family engagement. So what are the benefits? How do we go about making sure the families get involved? And then two, what is the benefit for them, right? And we need to be able to articulate that to them and say, listen, as family, we want you to become involved or we want you to become engaged because let me tell you about the benefits that the more than 50 years of research have found out that this is why you should be engaged in your child's education. So first of all, there is benefits for students and schools, right? So what do students and school benefit? Well, students benefit by higher grades. When their parents are involved, they're going to have higher grades, better attendance and homework completion, more positive attitudes, higher graduation rates, greater enrollment in college. And then for the school, improve teacher morale. When you have students who are there, who are doing well, when you have parents that are being engaged, of course, it's going to improve your morale as a teacher, right? Higher ratings of teachers by parents, believe it or not. Um, Parents talk about us. They talk about us in the community. They talk about us with other parents. So obviously, when we know that we have engaged parents and we know that our kids are doing well, it's going to give us higher ratings as teachers by parents. And then two, there's going to be more support from the families. They're going to be more up to help us. They're going to be there supporting us and supporting our students, supporting their children. And then two, it's a better reputation in the community. The community is going to be talking about your school. They're going to be talking about the teachers within the school. They're going to be talking about you personally. So again, better reputation. And then two, higher expectations of students. And of course, it's going to increase the ability to understand family views and culture because the more the families come to the school, the more they're engaged with you, the more you're going to get to know them on a personal level, the more you're going to start to understand where they're coming from, especially they're coming from another different culture, a different country. So you start to get to know them and get to learn more about their culture and things that they value. And again, it's a win-win for everybody. So what about the parents? Well, I've been doing family engagement for the past, 16 years, right? And I collect data. I oversee a program called Family Academies, which are workshops for parents, and we do them in different languages. I don't know if you know this, but in Wake County, we have over 223 different languages. We are very diverse, so we focus on the top languages, and we do provide family academies in different languages. So I do collect data just because I want to find out, you know, what do my parents feel about the academy? So what we always find out, and it's interesting because we tend to see the same results over and over, is that parents benefit by having greater knowledge of the education programs, and also how school works. In other words, how can they better navigate the school system? Also, knowledge will have to be more supportive of children. We provide them with different hands-on activities so that they could go home and support their student, their child with literacy, with math. And again, they feel more confidence about how to go about helping their kids at home. So we try to give them the tools, we try to give them the knowledge, and of course, they feel more positive, they have more positive views about teachers, and that they feel greater empowerment. So again, parents, when they are engaged and we give them the tools that they need, they're going to feel empowered to be able to help their kids. And that's what we want, because we want them to support us academically so that again their kids could do better. So now, um, when you start if you start reading more about the research, or if you would like to read more about the research about family engagement, what you're going to find too, that it's not just the family that we are trying to engage, it's also the community. So a lot of times you're going to see family and community engagement, because truly it takes a village. When you think about educating a child and you think about everything that goes into engaging, and it's just not the families, it's just not the school, it's just not the teachers, it's also tapping into the community, right? And what happens when you do that? There's greater strength, there's a greater impact of services through a comprehensive integrated approach. And then two, we increase the access to services for families. And what I would like for you, actually what I would like to encourage you to do is go around your neighborhood. Drive around and find out, do an assets map. Find out what you have available in your community and start thinking about how can we tap into the community so that we could become a better and bigger partners with the community and the families and the schools. So do that and learn about your community, and you're going to find out that, wow, all along, there might be a faith that could help you with tutoring. There might be an agency that could help you with funding, or as speakers. Again, tap into those resources. So now let's talk about family engagement research-based frameworks. Again, as I mentioned earlier, I am not really going to go over strategies because there are other future sessions and I don't want to take away from those, but I do want to encourage you to take advantage of those strategies. So let's talk about some of these family engagement research-based frameworks. And I am going to begin with one that is very dear to me, which is the dual capacity building framework for family school partnership. And there's two versions. There's a version 1, which is this one, and this is the version 2. So we're going to focus on the latest one, which is version 2. And let me tell you how this came about. This is Karen Mepp right here. And when Secretary of Education Duncan visited the Harvard Graduate School of Education, that was back in February 2010, senior lectured Dr. Karen Mapp asked them about federal support for family engagement. And of course, sometimes when you ask the question, then you walk away doing the work. So at that time, Secretary Duncan looked at Karen and said, well, that's a great idea. Why don't you put something together? Help us come out with a new approach that will benefit everyone. So Dr. Karen Mapp took it on, and she began doing the research. She actually looked at Ann Henderson, and Ann Henderson has done a lot of research in family engagement. She actually looked at 85 different studies and actually came out with the themes why family engagement it's critical to a child's academic education. And we talked about some of those benefits. So again, Ann Henderson has done a lot of research in this field. So she looked at her work as well as Dr. Joyce Epstein. And Dr. Joyce Epstein is she's very popular in family engagement or family involvement research. She actually came out with a framework that we're going to talk about in a few minutes. So she's been very instrumental in developing frameworks as well as doing research in family engagement. And then, of course, Dr. Karen Mapp, she has done a lot. She's written a few books, Beyond the Bake Sale and others. In fact, at the end of the presentation, I have some resources there. So in case you want to read about these folks or you want to read more about Dr. Karen Mapp, you could do that as well. So let's begin. So again, as I was telling you about the framework, what happened was that Karen Matt went back and she began looking at all this research, and then she came out with a framework, a feminine engagement framework. And I believe it was in December 2012. The Secretary of Education released the draft. The framework draft was released, and I think it was in 2014 that it actually was rolled out to many the school districts with the intent for schools to utilize this as a compass to be able to start thinking about family engagement. And let me go over some of these parts because I believe it's critical for you to understand this framework that we actually use in Wake County Public Schools. So let's talk about the challenges. The challenges help us understand the reasons why educators and families have struggled to build effective partnerships. So the dual capacity building framework for family school partnership, what I like is that when it talks about the challenges, it talks about the challenges that educators face as well as families. When you think about educators, right, they have not been exposed to strong examples of family engagement. I mean, think about this. When we went to school, did you ever take in a class that just talk about this is how you work with families, this is how you engage them? I didn't. And if you have, oh my God, I am so glad because honestly, I feel that we need to be as future teachers or as teachers, we need to learn about how do we go about engaging them, right? How do we go about engaging families? And again, many times we have received minimum training about engagement, engaging parents and what are the best research strategies. How do we go about putting a plan together? So again, we need to be able to identify those challenges with the educators, and then we need to be able to do something about it. So again, a lot of times too, as educators, we have developed a deficit mindset that we need to change. Family engagement is a mindset that we have to start thinking about. We need to work together as partners, right? Parents and teachers, we need to work together because truly the outcome is that we want their kids to graduate. We want to do well. We want to teach these students because they are the future, and we need to make sure that they become productive citizens. And then two, families. We want families to be engaged, and many times they don't even know how to get engaged, right? Especially as ELL teachers, we deal with many different parents that come from all over the world. So again, it's very difficult for them to really understand how do I get engaged in the US? What is the expectation, right? And many times in many cultures, family engagement is not even part of this is how we get engaged in school. No, sometimes it's very hands off. So again, we need to be able to provide examples to families about engagement. Many times they have had negative past experience with school and teachers, may not feel invited to come to the school or to contribute. And then two, they may feel disrespected, or they're not being heard, or they're not being valued. So we need to identify those challenges. So again, whether you are looking at from a lens of I want to begin with my classroom or school or district, you need to identify the challenges. And then again, every school, every classroom is going to have different challenges, so you have to be able to identify what they are. Then we have the essential conditions, right? Um, in order for us to provide meaningful family engagement, we have to start working on building relationships with parents. Again, many times families had bad experiences with the educational system. So we need to build those relationships. And as teachers, it is our job to do that. And again, sometimes we might just have to do an activity about just building community, and that's okay. But also when you are doing any events, when you are doing anything that you are inviting the families to come to your school, you have to always link everything that you're doing to learning, because we want to make sure that they understand this is what your child needs to learn to be a third grader, or this is what your child needs to learn to be able to move on to middle or to high school. Again, we need to make sure that we link it to learning. And two, we need to start tapping into their assets, right? And also the community. And we also have to make sure that we are being culturally responsive and respectful of all the different cultures, and also ask them, how would you like to be engaged? Uh, do you know what that means? Let's talk about this. This is how I would like for you to engage in your child education, and give them concrete examples. And then you ask them, how would you like us to be engaged with you? And again, you got to make this collaboration, and you got to make anything you do interactive, right? So those are the process conditions. And then you got to think about the organizational conditions. Sometimes when family engagement becomes systemic, right, when it starts from the top, it, it, it will then flow better into the classroom. So again, we have to be able to embrace and the leadership across the organization. So hopefully, I know a lot of schools are Title I schools, and as such, they have to do family engagement because of the federal funding that they receive. So again, I'm sure they already have a policy that talks about family engagement. So look at that, and then start thinking about strategies. How are we going to work on some strategies to bring in these families? And sometimes maybe we need to go to them, right? We need to go into their neighborhoods. We need to go into their clubhouse and be able to engage with them there. But if you're going to do something like that, please make sure that you let them know that you are coming, and tell them why. Say, we are coming to your neighborhood because we want to have parent teacher conferences. We are going to have interpreters. We're going to have childcare. We're going to be at the clubhouse from this time to this other time. And again, so whatever you do, I think one of the challenges is um, how do you sustain with the resources and the infrastructures this family engagement? My apologies, somebody's trying to get a hold of me. Oh, that's my husband. Sorry, I just hung up on him. He will call me back later. So again, how do we go about sustaining this family engagement? One of the things that I will encourage you to do as you develop this plan is come out with short-term goals. They are doable, and then work on those. If you fail, it's okay. Learn from those mistakes, and then try to do things differently. Analyze what worked, what didn't work, what can we do better, who do we need to bring in, what resources do we need. So again, think about the big picture. um, so then let's look at the other section, policy and program goals. Again, you have to start thinking about the capabilities and skill knowledge. So these are what we call the 4 C's. And let me spend a little bit on the 4 C's right here because this is crucial. Uh, and these are the 4 C's that we need to build the capacities of educators and families. So, for example, when you think about the skills and knowledge, the staff, let's look at the staff. They need to be able to understand community funds of knowledge. What are the community bringing? What are those families bringing, right? And we have to be culturally competent and we have to build relationships. We need to learn about the demographics in the schools. We need to find out who are our students, who are the parents. And then, two, from the families, we need to be able to provide them with the advocacy and educational support that they need so that they could build these skills, right? We are giving them the capabilities, the skills, the knowledge that they need. And then when you think about connections, which is the network, um, for staff and families, they need to have access to networks. They need to that it's built on trust and respect. When you bring them together, when you bring in and you tap into the community, you are creating a network for everybody to learn about what's available. So again, we have to build the capability of the staff and families. And then when you think about cognition, which is basically a shift in beliefs and values, um, staff, they have to believe in the value of partnerships. They have to really understand that when you partner with the families, there's a benefit, there's value in there. And then, two, for the families, we want them to view themselves as partners in their children's learning. It's okay for them to read to them. It's okay for them to help them with the homework. It's okay. We want this partnership. But then we also have to let them know what this partnership is. And again, is having that conversation about this is how I would like you to be engaged. And then ask them, how would you want me to be engaged? So it becomes a two-way communication. And then when you think about the confidence, right? Self-efficacy, what we really want from staff and families is for them to feel comfortable, and we want them to become knowledgeable so that then they could develop the efficacy so that they could work along with each other, right? Especially along cultural differences. So we want them to be able to have the information to do that. And then when this is done, right? We are building the capacity of what? Of the educators, of the family, right? When you think about it, educators are, and they will feel empowered to do what? Connect with the families, right? To engage them as co creators, to honor family funds of knowledge, to create welcoming cultures. And then for families, we want them to be able to become co creators, supporters of their children's education. We want them to encourage their children to do well. We want them to monitor their homework, to be on top of things. And then we definitely want them to advocate for their children and to be role models for them. And then we will develop this effective partnership that supports students in school improvement. So it starts here. This is why I love the dual capacity framework. And again, it's a compass, right? But it starts with the challenges and then what are the essential conditions. And then you look at the policies and program goals. And then you look at the capacity outcomes. And then hopefully we will reach what we want. So this is one framework. And again, it's very popular. I encourage you to read more about it. So now let's talk about a different one. And this is the 5 principles by Dr. Steve Constantino. And he developed this as a way for every school, again, to harness the power of family engagement. It's a direct conduit to student achievement. And he has 5 principles. In fact, he has written a book about this that you could buy. And if you're interested in this framework, but I'm going to go over the 5 principles really fast. One, he talks about the culture that engages every family. Basically, what he's asking is for the schools to create and sustain a culture that is conducive for family engagement, right? Through explicit beliefs, actions, norms, values, and assumptions made about the value of working with families. And again, it's about making sure that families are engaged with the children's school experiences. And also, he would like for schools to develop policies, programs, practices, and procedures, again, to connect with families. And what he really wants is for the families to then connect with the student learning, to support student learning and performances at home. Principle 2 talks about communicate effectively and to build relationships. And again, he would like for schools to create and maintain a welcoming and respectful environment that is inviting, supportive, and encouraging to every family. And of course, for schools to employ strategies that will extend relationship building opportunities beyond the school walls so that families can contribute to the education of their children. And then, of course, number 3, it's about empowering every family. And it's for schools to make conscious efforts to educate families to play a proactive role in their child's education life. And for families to participate in the development of the student learning planning to help assess progress and provide support for their child's learning. And then 4, it's for the schools to create opportunities for family to lean and participate in school learning sessions, events, to also consult with the teachers, to help with the planning and social and community events. And of course, for the school to ensure that families and students have representation on the school governing bodies and decision-making committees. And then number 5, it's to engage the greater community. That means stepping into the community again and making sure that you are connecting with the community so that you could partner in different activities. For example, you could connect with a community college and they could bring ESL classes to the school. Maybe you could connect with the faith and you could provide some tutoring or some businesses. But again, it's connecting with the community as well. So this is the 5 principles of family engagement. Now, I want to talk to you a little bit about Epstein's 6 types of parental involvement. And this is the framework that is actually one of the most popular out there. And you will constantly see this. And you're going to start to see a lot of these things. Like you're going to start seeing that, oh, I heard this in the other framework. Oh, this is similar to the other framework. One thing about frameworks is that they're not a recipe, right? So you could take from here and there and kind of create your framework. You don't have to follow one as step by step, but think about it. Think about what is it that your community needs. So when you start thinking about this framework, it's a reference only, right? That's going to help you. It's going to guide your family engagement plan. So Epstein talks about parenting skills and knowledge. Think about that, parenting skills and knowledge. We have a lot of immigrant parents that are in need of parenting skills and knowledge, and they need to learn about parenting skills. And sometimes we don't even know how to go about doing that. So we need to be able to provide them with those skills. And again, we could tap into a community agency that might be doing some of this that could help us and partner with us. And then type 2 is communicating between home and school. They would like to focus on effective school to home and home to school communication. And that means also making sure that you are providing interpretation services and translation services as needed, if parents need it, in order to, again, to create this communication between the home and school, we need to be able to provide them with the language support that they need. And then type 3, it's about encouraging volunteering at school and in the community. That's basically to focus on recruitment, training. And again, how do we go about bringing parents as volunteers? And we want them to come to support students and to support the school programs. So how do we go about making sure they become volunteers? Type 4, it's about supporting student learning at home, family involvement with children in learning activities in the home. How do we go about supporting them? Can we engage them in activities so that then they can go home and practice reading with different questions, stems? Do we give them resources so they could help us teaching them math? Do we give them the online resources for them to be able to go and learn different skills? And then 5, type 5, it's about involvement in decision making and advocacy. Again, this focuses on family as decision making to make sure that they could be part of different committees within the school. And then 6, collaboration with the community. Again, it goes about how do we go about engaging the community in the school. So again, if you notice, a lot of this is sounds familiar. Remember when they developed the dual capacity framework, they looked at all this research. And I mentioned earlier that the Dr. Joyce Epstein was very instrumental, her work, her research, but this is the Epstein's 6 types of parental involvement framework. Now, let's talk about the national standards for family school partnership. I think it's crucial that you know about this because I believe every school has a PTA, and they actually follow this framework. I kind of like it because you know what? I don't know, it's big. Seems easier to follow, right? So it's 6 standards. And it says welcoming all families, and basically it's about creating a community that it's welcoming, that values different families and backgrounds, right? And then you have standards 2, which is communicating effectively. Again, is providing and engaging with families, making sure that they are communicating in a meaningful way, and everything's about student learning. And then you have standard 3, which is supporting student success. And that's basically to collaborate with the school to support student learning and their healthy development. Again, they want them to do it at both at school and at home. And then also to give them the opportunity to and the knowledge and the skills that they need to support the students at home. And then you have, I love this one, speaking up for every child. Families are empowered to advocate for their own and their children. And again, this is to make sure that every child, every family is treated fairly and have access to learn opportunities that will support their success. And then sharing power. Families and school staff are equal partners in decisions that affect children and families, and together inform, influence, and create policies, practices, and programs. Then you got this one, collaborating with the community. I mean, again, it's tapping into the community and collaborating with them. So that's critical. So this is the national standard for family school partnership. And now I know that we all work with our ELL students, and we know that many other families are immigrants. So I would like to speak to you on the 4 stages of immigrant family engagement. Um, the more schools or the more teachers know about why each newcomer family comes to the United States, you know, what their hopes and aspirations are and how well prepared they are to partner with the school, the better the school and the better teachers will be positioned to support and help these families transition to a new school, a community, a culture. I mean, I don't have to tell you, you know how hard it is for those students and the families to be able to just navigate and understand the mainstream culture. So Hand in Love in 2015, they actually, I like the research. Basically, they talk about immigrant parents, how they move through 4 stages of parental engagement. So I want to walk you through that because, again, as you are thinking about how do I engage my English language learners, families, I want you to think and I want you to keep in mind this, okay? Because it's critical, because that's going to help you decide what type of strategies, programs you might need to be able to engage your parent. So there are 4. We talk. Well, let me walk you through that. We got the cultural survival, then the cultural learner, the cultural connector, and the cultural leader. So let me walk you through this. The cultural survivor. We start right here in the bottom. This is families who maybe recently arrived, immigrants, right? Many will be concerned about security in food and shelter and may not have much time to learn about and navigating the US school system. So it's survival, right? So we got to keep in mind our parents in survival mode right now. And then obviously we want them to become cultural learners. So what does that mean? They may feel somewhat at ease with the school and want to learn more about what is taught. You know, they want to learn more about the school culture and other aspects of the school. Hand in Love, they believe that cultural learners are more comfortable than cultural survivors with the new school culture and the U.S. educational system. Obviously, with the help of qualified and trained interpreters, and many times us who speak another language, we become the interpreters and translators, right? Um, but that would help parents to communicate with the school and to learn about how do I navigate this US school system, right? So they feel more comfortable attending workshops in their native language and are likely to participate in parent teacher conferences with language support. And then we got the cultural connectors. They become familiar with the educational terminology, policies, and procedures. They may wish to work with cultural survivors and cultural learners, right? And then they become a little mentors. And of course, they want to help them understand and engage in school programs and activities to support their children and parents. So cultural connectors. We're going to come back to this in a minute to all this, but let me explain what they are. Then we got the cultural leader. Cultural leaders, they often become the voice of their ethnic and language community. I call them community brokers, right? And they become the advocates for parents in the other stages. They may become leaders and participate in training. So it is crucial for us to understand where are our parents in this pyramid. Are there cultural survivors? Are there cultural learners? Are there connectors? And also, are there leaders? And if they're leaders, let's utilize them to become our community brokers so they could help us with the cultural survivors, right? It's crucial for us to understand these 4 stages because, again, it's going to help us to address the unique challenges of newcomers, of new families, right? And also to develop strategies that will support these parents across all the 4 stages. So again, we talked about these different frameworks, right? So I would like to now see if you guys have any questions. So I would like to know, what do you find helpful from these frameworks? And then to what stands out as distinct or perhaps new in thinking about creating dynamic partnerships with your parents? I know I gave you a lot to think about and process, but the intent of the framework it's instead of a roadmap, the framework provides you with a compass, right? It's a direction for the development of your plan, and then you're going to incorporate strategies and initiatives that will help you support your goal. Does that make sense? So at this time, I would like to open the floor, Suckley.
Okay, so if you have a question for Dr. Rangel, please raise your hand and I will unmute you. I think we have a question while people get their mics ready. Let me read this question. It says, do you have this information available in Spanish?
Um, no, but I know that the national standards for family school partnership, it is in Spanish. I believe the Epstein framework has it in Spanish. Are you talking about the frameworks, or would you like the whole PowerPoint in Spanish?
I think they were talking about the networks. Let me see. Oh, yeah. It says Martinez. It says it's the frameworks. Information about the framework is in Spanish.
I don't have it in Spanish, but I could translate it and share them with you, because that's a thought. Actually, you got me thinking about that.
Okay,
So what I could do is share them with you, Ms. Dodd, and then you could share them with the participants.
perfect. Yes, thank you. And somebody asked earlier if we're going to share this PowerPoint. Yes, we're going to add a link on our PD dashboard with the recording of this session and the slide deck. So you will have access to this. And I see one hand. I'm going to unmute Brian Carter. I think he has a question for you, Dr. Rangel.
Sure.
Brian?
Yes. Hello, Dr. Rangel. Uh, I was just going to make a comment about how the frameworks are perfect for. I am starting a Spanish resource center in January with Eastway Elementary in my school in Durham, and I just thought that the dual capacity framework it just kind of coincides all of the elements that you're talking about fit in perfectly with what I'm trying to do with that resource center.
Wow, I'm glad. In Wake County, we use the dual capacity framework. Um, I like it a lot actually because it really helps me to see things from a different perspective. And I like it when I show it to teachers because I always tell them, look at this and think about it from your classroom perspective. What is it that you're trying to achieve? You know, identify the challenge, and then you can move through the framework. So thank you for that. Also, if you need any materials for your, as far as presentations for parents in Spanish, reach out to me because we have a lot of materials already translated into Spanish. We have different workshops, you name it, from
Yes, ma'am.
how to support
Uh,
your child with literacy to math, you name it. But I could send you a list of different resources that I have that I will be happy to share with you.
Thank you. Is this webinar today on, is the PowerPoint available?
Yes, Mrs. Stott is going to share it with everybody.
Okay, great. Thank you, Dr. Rangel.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you, Brian.
Thank you,
I
Sally.
I don't see any more hands. We have a shy crowd, I think. We have 5 more minutes. So if you
Okay.
have any questions, just please raise your hand or type the questions in the question box and we will read them so Dr. Rangel can give you her answers.
And again, you're going to have my contact information. Please feel free to reach out to me and ask me questions. Like I said, I've been doing this for 16 years. And at the beginning, it was a learning experience. And then when I went to graduate school, I decided that might as well, since I'm doing this for a living, I needed to really understand the literature behind family engagement and the benefit of it. And I have to tell you that as a parent, it makes sense for families to be engaged. It makes sense for us to build these partnerships. And but I also have seen many times, people failed. They get disappointed because they don't have a big turnout. But you know what? I always tell people, hey, if you had 10 parents, those are 10 parents' lives that you are going to change. And think about what you are doing, because they're going to turn around and help the children. So again, don't give up and don't feel discouraged, because truly, again, yeah, I want to end with this. This is so crucial. Families are most likely to become engaged if they understand they should be engaged, right? We need to make sure that they understand, especially with different cultures and different beliefs, right? I mean, I could tell you from my culture, the Latino culture, it is very difficult for us to be engaged because we see our role very differently. And then when the school asks us to be engaged, we're like, but we are supporting our kids differently. See, there is the curriculum of the home, right? That people need to understand. How do we go about engaging our students, our children? And we don't see our role as to be at the school every day, or to question the teacher. No, we support our kids differently. But if you really want us to be engaged, you need to tell us how, and you have to really explain to us, how do we go about being engaged? And again, too, if you want families to be engaged, they need to know that they're capable of making a contribution. Many times parents says, but I don't know how to read or write. Hey, there's other ways that you could support your children. You could find a quiet space. You could motivate them. There's online resources that you could have them watch videos. You have the capability. You can help. But again, they need to know. And of course, they have to feel invited by the school and their children. They need to know that they are welcome, and that if they come with questions or concerns, that we are going to be able to help on. And if we don't have the answer, we're going to find someone. This is why it's so crucial to tap into the resources that you have as ELL or as regular classroom teachers. You have social workers, you have counselors. Tap into central service people too. I mean, I'm here, and I'm sure that you have people that work in central office that are there waiting to reach out and help you. Um, Tap into the community. You'll be amazed of all the resources out there. And then you're going to have the resources here if you want to know more about, you know, the 5 principles. There's a book, Beyond the Bake Sale. It's a good one. It is really good one. Karen Mapp, and also Henderson. And then you got this other one, which is also a great book by Joyce Epstein, Dr. Epstein. And then Powerful Partnership. This one, it's really easy read. They're all easy read. And then if you want to know more about the dual capacity framework, you could go here and you could see it. That's the latest version. Um, there is, like I said, there was a new version, but the dual capacity version 2 came out this year. And also, I wanted to encourage you to attend the National Family and Community Engagement Conference. It's going to be in May 27, 28, and 29. It's going to take place in Los Angeles, California. If you can, again, you will get to meet all these different researchers, and you will be able to find out and learn from different school districts across the nation about how they're engaging their families. But do know that there's over 50 years of research. I mean, seriously, over 50 years of research that says that when families are engaged, the children would do better. As a parent of an immigrant, actually, as an immigrant myself, I could tell you I'm very engaged in my child's education, and I could see that. I could see that he's in school, he loves school. It's expected that he's going to go to college because he sees me being engaged, right? I'm there. I ask him, but I also understand, right? that if parents don't know how, we need to make sure that we give them the tools so that they could help their kids. And at the end, it's a win-win for all of us. Any questions, concerns before we say adios?
We have two more questions. The first
Sure.
one says, have you had the experience in your district or having parents who are illiterate in their home language? How can we help them get engaged?
Yes. When I was an ESL teacher, um, I had three parents that cannot read or write in their native language. So I used to communicate with them. I will call them. I will do home visits. Um, I would always ask them to come. I would always tell them, if there's something that you don't understand, let me know. So I think the first thing is that we need to identify who they are, and many times they might not tell us. Many times we find out because the children would tell us. So once you identify them, kind of approach them and make sure that you do it in private and just tell them, I'm here to support you. If there's anything that you don't understand, let me know. I think now because of smartphones, everybody has smartphones, and I know that you could do a quick video and send it, and that is a way to communicate, right? Through a small video. Also, calling them. But again, you have to be able to identify them. And having those conversations, I find that with a lot of my English language learners, when I was an ESL teacher, having that one-on-one, you know, would engage them more because they will see me as I'm human too, and I care about them. So you have to build those relationships.
Thank you. And the last question before we close, Dr. Rangel, it says, I am wanting to start a new commerce club at my high school, and I would like to involve the families. What framework you think is good for me to use to start with?
So the framework is just a reference, right? So you have to look at it and see which one would meet the needs of your family. And I would start by inviting them, the families, and just having a conversation about, it's just like coffee and donuts kind of thing, and just bring them in and say, hey, I have this idea. What do you guys think about this? How would you like to contribute? What will be some ways for us to make it even more, I don't know, a better place? And then from there, you're building relationships, and you're going to find out, sometimes you're going to find out, and they're going to tell you things that you might not be ready to hear, but they will open up.
Mhm. Okay, we don't have any more questions. If we can go to the next slide, maybe we need to move a couple so participants can see your email in case they want to
Yes.
communicate with you. Some of them have expressed in the chat that they would like to receive some of those workshops and resources that you said that you will share. So I'm sure they want to have your email. And please, for all the attendees, thank you very much. Please join us in January for our second session. We're going to have Sandra Greenfield from Public Schools of Robeson County with a collaborative approach to ELD family engagement. We are going to add the recording and the slide deck and also the information about Dr. Rangel in our bit.ly/PD dashboard. And also you will find there the other professional learning opportunities that we are offering at NCDPI with the ESL Title III team. We thank you, Dr. Rangel, very much. We thank you for this very important session today on frameworks as we start working on family engagement and for our 3 next sessions. I think we can finish for today. Thank you very much. It's 4:36. Unless you have one last remark, we can conclude our recording for the day.
I just want to say thank you for the opportunity, and please don't hesitate to reach out. And thank you, and good luck with your outreach. And please don't get discouraged. Again, use the framework as a reference. and use whatever you think is going to work for you for your population of ELL. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a nice afternoon, everyone.